Well, welcome. Today, Lauren and Christine and I are going to be talking about gates 27 and 24. So we'll explore around and see what we can learn and what we can play with over the next two periods of 5.5 days. And just before we came on, we were talking about the craziness that seems to be happening in the world, right, or in our lives at very least. I'm hoping it's not just us.
But we're learning to ride the chaos,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And know we have the tools we need.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think also for me, it just helps to be more in touch with the fact that there is something greater that's happening that I don't know. It just removes some feeling of responsibility in some ways, right? It's like, oh, you know what? I can't control that. That's just out there,
Yeah.
right? You know? So that I think has been very helpful for me.
Yeah,
Um,
which is opportunity to let go some more.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly. Um, The we will be coming into gate 27. The sun will be entering gate 27 on April 21st. And gate 27 is the gate of caring. So this idea of surrendering some stuff may not be as much on offer because gate 27 really wants us to take care of things, right? This is what it's here to do. It's a tribal energy. It's all about one part of the tribal defense circuit is all about having children, being procreative, and the other side of that circuit is all about taking care of them. And this gate is on that side of the circuit, looking to nurture and take care of the things that we create in the world. And it's usually children, but it can be all sorts of things, right? It can be our projects and our other creative endeavors as well. And so the energy in this gate is really about how caring enhances everything, right? And I was thinking about that as I was preparing for this and this idea that, so much of what's asked of us in the modern world is just doing and busy work and doesn't really carry a lot of care. And the information around this gate really talks a lot about how important that is to us, right? And how it is, when we're just mindlessly doing things, um, everything is less, right? Nothing is high a value as it could be. And so I think that's really the energy that's going to be on offer in this the 21st to the 26th. It's like, what do you care about? And maybe take care of that and let other things go by the wayside.
rather than trying to fit everything in and get kind of in the way to get on with it and hurry up. Yeah. No.
I think we're coming out of a time that has been the issue. And I think these 5.5 days are a pause to be more considerate about what we're nourishing and how we're nourishing it. And I think that includes ourselves because we're creating something with ourselves and our creations out there in the world can only be as strong and resilient as we are when we're creating them. Lois, that makes me think about the work that I'm doing right now seasonally here. And the last month or so, I've been raising seedlings in the basement and under lights, but now they go out into the garden and they need care. So, like my children, and I'm putting them out and launching them. I can't just walk away. I need to make sure they have this, they may need physical support, they may need water, they may need mulching. And at the same time, if I get so caught up in caring for them and not care for myself, I won't be able to do the work. And so to me, this gate brings up that balance of caring for what is really important for us and also caring for ourselves.
Well, it brings up something really interesting because the shadow in the gene key is selfishness.
Mm.
And there's so often what you were just saying, which is so true about looking after ourselves, is that women in particular tend to think of that as, well, I'm being selfish in caring for myself.
Right.
And there's this hugely negative perspective around what that's about. So, like you're saying, is like I need to care for myself so I can care for um, what what I care about.
Well, Lois, this also brought to mind this, and I think I thought of this often when I was younger, that self-care was going out and maybe getting a manicure or a massage. And I would kill myself to get all the things done so I could go do that one thing. And today, self-care is looking at my list and going, let me just take those two things off today. And that is a much more in alignment with, I think, what this gate is asking for us.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you both are talking about as far as this selfishness piece. Like Gate 27 line 1 is the name is selfishness, right? And in the line companion what it says is no other caring is possible if you are not caring for yourself. Right? And so it is an interesting dilemma within the energy itself, right? It's this tribal energy, right? It's here to really nurture the group, and yet it's very foundational energy is like that doesn't matter. You can't do any of that other stuff until you take care of yourself. And you're right, like Lauren, it is a lot of this taking care of ourselves is not about adding more to our plate, right? And that is absolutely not the thing to do. And so learning to really suss out again, like what is it I care about? And then those are the things I'm going to take care of, right? Because there's a lot of stuff in our lives that, we're told we should that we should care about. We're told that we should want. We're told, the world makes us feel certain ways. But when we get down to it, we really know like there's a bunch of stuff in our life that we don't really care about, right? And so just getting rid of some of that is probably really a worthwhile activity in the next few weeks.
There's how we care as well, because like I think even like last year in this gate, we talked about caretaking versus caregiving.
Mhm.
But I think it's worth visiting again in terms of in the how we're caring, both for ourselves and for other people. Because like right now, your seedlings, they need to be caretaken,
Mhm.
right? Because they can't do it for themselves. But they will get to the point where you can just, go out and admire them and give them a little water and fertilizer sometimes, and they'll be on their own. But there's a difference in how much energy that's coming from you to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and the caring energy is reciprocal too, right? Like when we take care of these things, like fairly soon, those plants will be taking care of Lauren, right? They will
Yeah.
be nourishing her, right? And so it is kind of an interesting, cycle that that caring exists within.
Yeah. Which is interesting in the way of caring is that when some people they like when they don't have boundaries, they give too much and they're just giving and giving and giving and quite often not receiving. But the other thing is there isn't the reciprocity that you mentioned, Christine, is like because there's some people that they can give you so much that it starts to feel really uncomfortable. Like you owe them something somehow for all of their giving. So in that, I think paying attention to is there that reciprocity, the give and take in the relationship, that there's a balance because there's a balance of power that shifts if you're the one that's been doing all the giving somehow, and then resentment shows up, both sides. I'm giving too much and you're not appreciating it, and I don't know what to do with your all of this giving.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's interesting. It is true that, caring does like it has its own limits, right? Like at some point, caring stops being caring, right? It starts being something else. And in the situation you just, outlined, like that something else is not caring at all, right? It's not caring for yourself, it's not caring for the other, it's unwanted, right? It brings up all kinds of other things. So it is interesting, like I think of, the quintessential like old grandma or whatever that, just kept making cookies for the kid kind of thing. And it's like kids only need so many cookies, right? Like at some point this isn't good. You know?
Um, I'm thinking about a practice that we used to do in the Gemmo training with folks that were becoming Gemmo practitioners, and this was opening our class with checking in with ourselves, and then focusing on what would nourish you with how you're feeling right now. Would it nourish you to lay down for a minute or go get a cup of tea, or what would it take? And I'm thinking of this as we go into this period, that what a beautiful practice that would be when you wake up in the morning. And it's really two questions, right? What's important to me today? And then how could I nourish myself so that I see I can accomplish that?
Yeah.
I think so. I was just thinking, just a moment. I think so often we take what's really important to us and somehow stick it at the bottom of the list. And this is a beautiful thing that wisdom and aging does, is you learn to flip that list. I wish I'd learned to do it decades ago, right? And it was like, okay, I'll do these 25 things, and then if I have time, I'll do this one thing that would really give me joy.
Yeah. There was something that you should say related to the growing of the plants and this looking after yourself. Made me think about the connection with sort of the ebb and flow of life, and the knowing what we need to nurture and what we need to let go,
Mm,
and when it's time, because
yeah.
everything has its time. And so there's a wisdom sort of at the root of this gate that's really quite fascinating. And that letting go is just something as simple as you saying, I took those two things off my list, right? I just let them go. And
Yeah.
because it didn't need to happen right now.
Can I tie that into the Gemmo?
Yeah.
Well, this is great. This is just great. I love it when this happens. So the Gemmo I had suggested last year was oat, and I would absolutely recommend this again. Oat is all about becoming aware of how to nurture yourself. And oat is good when boundaries are an issue, and when you care too much or you don't care enough. Oat comes in and nourishes you. But today, when I was out planting seedlings, I'm planting this year into beds that were cover cropped with oats. And the idea is the oat, as it died off in the winter, will become mulch for the plant. And I'm thinking about what you said, Lois, about knowing what to feed, and what to nurture. So today I was looking at that and I thought, isn't this beautiful? Now I can just cut this across and I can use it for mulch for another bed too. So I'm cutting off what isn't needed, but it still is helping. It's still feeding. So it's not only is it improving the bed that it was in, but now it can support another bed. And I just have a sense that metaphorically this might translate to something for someone listening, but just being able to look around you and see how we can cut away things, but maybe also repurpose them.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because it's pointing to something else that's going on in the transits at the end of this gate 27 time period, which is that the Uranus and I'm sorry, Venus and Uranus are coming together in a channel in the body graph, and they're going to make the channel of initiation, which is again this very initiatory energy that can bring new things into the world. But the thing that I was noticing today when I was looking at it is actually what it does is it lights up the identity center for everyone on the planet. It activates that for everyone. So this idea of our own higher self and our own higher knowing is going to be online for the entire planet. And for a lot of people who don't normally have that online. And so I think about what you're talking about as being this piece of like under again, what's my higher self knowing is the right thing to care about, is the right thing to be nurturing, right? And I just think about that being really interesting. These channels that are being lit up are part of the mystical way in the human design body graph, right? And so there is going to be, I think, this extra energy that's going to tie us back in more closely to our own inner knowing, and maybe kind of profound ways. So I just feel like it could be a really interesting couple of transits in this space because of all of that going on elsewhere.
And it feels like there's an opportunity because in the Gene Keys, the gift is altruism. And this like thinking beyond ourselves, thinking beyond our small circles of it's like what does the world need? And what does the care does it need
Yeah.
right now?
Yeah, and the polarity gate, which I hadn't mentioned yet, is gate 28, which is the gate of the game player, but it is part of the channel of struggle, which is all about meaning. Like, what are we here for, right? I want to live before I die. This is what gate 28 is saying, right? And so, this idea about being tied to understanding, what to care for and what to not pay attention to was very deeply tied into what has meaning for us. In this case, what has meaning for us individually, but also for all of us, right? We know that we're all here contributing to a bigger project. And so, yeah, there is a lot of really interesting, I don't know, they're not synchronicities, but there's a lot of things that come together that seem to tell a really interesting story, I think.
Yeah. I think it would be good on just as personal and sort of like a transpersonal perspective as a practice would to be to look at what is nurturing and energizing in your life and what is taking energy away. But just like to think of it for us, but also to think of it globally. It's like, so what are the things? Because there's lots of nurturing things happening in the world in spite of all of the really draining stuff that's going on. So just to be able to, there might be a little bit of an uplifting that could come in spite of what's happening around us.
Yeah, and gate 27 is a sacral gate, right? This is our life force energy, right? So some folks don't have, definition, or very much definition in their sacral, and so this will be there for them, in a way that it may actually be clearer, like, ooh, this thing is what I want to give my life force to, right? And these things are not, that is actually going to probably be on offer for everyone.
Opportunity.
All right, cool. So we move from gate 27 into gate 24, which is a gate in the ajna, right? So it's in our mental awareness, gate 24, and it's the gate of rationalizing. It's also called returning in the I Ching. And this energy is an individual energy, and it really is interested in knowing things. Knowing the unknowable is what this channel gets accused of being, like wanting to know everything. Um, and so there can be this energy there of returning, of going back over things repeatedly. People that have this channel or have this gate can kind of get caught up in that, trying to figure things out. This is a very much a figuring things out energy. And so the wisdom here is, of course, that we can't figure everything out, right? And the bulk of our knowingness doesn't actually come from our mind, right? Our mind is here to do certain things, but it isn't here to make us safe, and it isn't here to be our inner authority, but we can get caught up in that space, right? And so I think about, we'll be moving out of this sacral space of like understanding a bit more about our own life force, and then we'll be flowing back into a more mental space to be aware of, between, at the very end of April, the 27th to the beginning of May 2nd, there may just be more of this like wanting to know things and spending energy in ways that may not be very useful to us, because there's some things that just you can't know, or that you can know but they don't really help you. So
But our minds think that they can either outthink it or outrun it. And so there's that where we get in that mental loop of going around the same thing again and again and again. And that's I think, a really important place for people to pay attention because those are patterns that show up in our lives. And it could be patterns like I keep getting attracted to the wrong kind of person, or I every time I try, to lose some weight or something, I get it goes sideways because I'm around certain people, and of course you have to eat around them. So there's like what in being able to watch that and actually get a little bit objective about it, then you've got an opportunity to make a little shift. And as Richard Rudd talked about the shifts being like in the gap, if you're watching your life like of a movie, is that somebody spliced in something a little different every once in a while. And in that splicing, there's a new opportunity for something new to happen and to not go back around the loop again. Is it because I can vouch for the fact it gets really frustrating when you do that.
Hmm. I'm thinking about what the antidote to this would be, because we're talking about getting stuck in our head, and that we all fall prey to that. I think it's part of being human, but if this is going to be up even stronger during this time, um, I think what I would like to see as an antidote is a way to drop into the heart space. And so I would do that with a Gemmo. And I'm jumping into this because I've been arguing with myself in my head. So last year I had suggested hops, and there were reasons for that, but I don't want to keep someone in their head during this time. I want to help bring them into their heart space, and to help them realize that their heart is big enough to solve this for them. And I think this is why we end up in this headspace, is we think this is the strongest organ, right? And this is where I'm going to solve this. And we don't give enough credit for solving things right here in the heart center. And Hawthorn's very good at reminding you that your heart is stronger and has more capacity than you realize.
Yeah. I think one thing that could help that in terms of a different practice to have around that would be to pay attention what's happening somatically for you.
Yeah.
Because this creates disruption for us. It creates discomfort. And so there's that so I'm getting uncomfortable now and I want to get out of that discomfort. So how do I get out of that discomfort? And well, the shadow is addiction. Right? And so if it's like either people numb themselves or they overstimulate themselves, and rather than just going to having those as a go-to, is to sort of just to take the time to pay attention to what your body is saying, because there's just tremendous information in there as well. And so in connection with the Hawthorn, I think there could be a lot of uncovering that could go on for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love both of those. And I would also say, I think something that really, it's a very practical and simple approach is because I talk to lots of people who have this mental um, structure essentially, right? It's just the energetics of their brain and how it works. But if you don't already have a practice of just writing stuff down, whether it's lists or a journaling or activity or something, like there is real value to getting that stuff out of your brain. Right? Because a lot of the returning is really people returning, trying to not forget the things that they want to return to. Right? Which is kind of crazy, but it does seem to be the case. And so literally just offloading it to a piece of paper somewhere or a voice memo or something, I think can actually bring a lot of peace and some clarity, right? Because what this energy is really asking for in its mechanics, it really wants silence. Right? Like that is really what it's asking
Mhm.
for. And not in a bad way, but in just like ugh, I just need space, right? And if you can't unload some of that stuff, you're never gonna get the space that you need to, again, go back to what we were talking about before, to really focus on the things that you want to focus on, right? And take care of the things you want to take care of. Um, and also, again, this, like I talked about earlier, the identity center is going to continue to be activated for everyone, right? So there is going to be a higher knowing access for everyone as well, right? So it's going to be a really powerful time to check in with that somatic embodied experience about what's going on in your mind, right? Like I hear all this stuff up here. What is it I'm feeling in the rest of my body, right? What is my heart asking from me right now? Or what is it wanting to do, right? And following those embodied responses and letting the other stuff as much as you can just go. Because the other thing we know about mental chatter is truly it's just chatter, right? Like you can't even remember from one day to the next what was chattering the day before, right? So,
I think too, there's also not being afraid of the silence, because that's a place that scares people, and they like when they start meditating and they don't know what's going on, it makes them uncomfortable. Is just that, again, the somatic experience of what's going on in the silence, and that you don't have to fill all that space with something. So, because it's
yeah.
desirable.
I can't imagine being afraid of silence. I love silence.
But you watch the number of people that need to
Yeah.
have the space filled with sound, music, or something going on, and even their own chatter.
Yeah, I guess it's true. Well, they live in a great time.
It's easily found.
Yeah, yes, there's no problem with finding noise in this world. Um, yeah, so I don't have a whole lot else to really offer about Gate 24. You know, I've noticed over the time of doing these, there are just some gates that, you know, I don't have in my own system. I haven't met a bunch of people with, like, there's just some gates that I don't have a ton of like relationship with, and it's really interesting to watch, right? Like I'm like I can see what this says it's about, but I don't really have any lived experience of it in a way that it's just kind of fascinating to be like, I don't know. I really don't know what to tell you.
Do you know what though I do know one person. My daughter-in-law has this in her design, and I did the way my son describes her is that if you could open your head, you'd find a whole bunch of like different files, like and I think that it does go on when this gate is lit up all the time. It's just like there's just so much going on in there, and it doesn't all connect either, right? So, uh, but boy, does that sound busy.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that you're right. It doesn't all connect, yet there is an energy to want to connect it all, right? And I think that's where the tension is, right? It's the not being surrendered to the fact that yes, all of this is coming through, all of it, you know, may or may not be worthwhile information, right? But my energy is telling me it is all worthwhile and it all connects up in some way, right? And so, you know, I can imagine it would be a lot, right? To just have it running inside of you constantly. And I guess we'll all get a brief taste of it for a few days.
Sure will.
See if our heads explode.
Yeah.
There's an emoji for that.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, looks like we're complete again. So thank you for being with us, and we hope we'll see you next time.